Okay, let's move on. Chapter 14, page 267. We're moving on from a 2-month delay of no uploads at all. The Crypto Conscious Mind and Telekinesis. We are reading The Projection of the Astral Body by Sylvan, Muldoon and Hereward, Carrington. Some fantastic accounts and how to project astrally in a scientific manner rather than just through dream state or meditation, or hypnotic state, as it were. This is a hypnagogic state. Of course, it's a type of hypnosis. However, if you really want to get down to the nitty-gritty, then it's great to really push yourself out of your comfort zone and try some of the examples that are in this book itself. So chapter 14, starting on page 267. I appreciate you following along. Thank you very much for anybody that subscribes to the channel and also likes the video. It does keep me motivated to keep going. I know it's taken a long time. I think I've been going through this book for 6 months or more. And despite having previously read it, I am discovering new things about it along the way also. Okay, so let's get going. It is extremely difficult to give objective proof of the projection of the astral body, much more difficult than most persons seem to think. The idea that once a projector gets outside his body, he can manipulate physical objects by an effort of will is all right in theory, but a very different story in practice. Before attempting to give a brief explanation of how physical objects may be moved by the projector, let me appeal to your reason. How many people have died within the past year? A good many, thousands. Is anyone so perfectly illogical as to say that these thousands who have passed over and are astral beings do not use conscious will power in an effort to communicate with their beloved earthly friends? That is the very first thing one would do when awakening in the astral body. How many records are made each year of astral beings successfully manipulating physical objects? Very few, in comparison with the number who have died and are trying to give evidence of their presence. No, conscious will is not a vital factor in producing physical phenomena. Knowing which, is it not unreasonable to expect all sorts of physical manifestations by the conscious astral projector? Few persons have any idea of the intangibility of physical objects to astral beings. Even many experimenters do not seem to know that the astral body is vibrating at a higher rate when 2 feet out of coincidence than it does when 6 inches out of coincidence. Yet that is true, and it is vibrating at a still higher rate when 3 feet out of coincidence. If it were not, the astral being would be unable to pass through an earthly being. But you will say an astral body can pass through a physical body. But wait, did it ever occur to you that if the astral body in coincidence vibrated at the same rate as the one out of coincidence, they would collide as the astral being tried to pass through the coinciding bodies of the earthly being? If the astral did not raise its rate of vibration, it could not pass through the astral body which is in coincidence with the physical body. It is true, however, that willpower is the factor behind the manipulation of the physical objects, but it is not the conscious will. It is the unconscious will, the will of the crypto-conscious mind. It is perhaps possible that after a spirit has advanced, he may learn how to control this crypto-conscious will more deftly. But for the temporarily projected astral being, it is another matter. His crypto-conscious mind controls him much of the time, as I have already said. Why, then, does this crypto-conscious mind not produce physical manifestations more often? All physical manifestations are not produced by the crypto-conscious will. It is true, but when they are, this will must operate upon some force in order to do so. The will alone could not move physical objects. It is the force which the will operates upon and manipulates. Will is mental. and this process of the crypto-conscious mind operating upon force, in a process of the crypto-conscious mind operating upon force in a certain manner with determination, sets into action the motive force of which we know so little, yet know that it exists. When you are conscious and in control of your motivity, you may will, say, to knock a tumbler off the table, and by using your motive force, hit the tumbler with your fist and knock it off as willed. But you must use force. Your will does not perform the act alone, neither does your arm or your fist. Force must be aroused by the inner mental process. So, with the crypto-conscious mind, its will must manipulate force before it can manipulate objects. Just how the mind, either mind, does this is not known. It is easy to say that. In the physical body, your arm lunges out and knocks the tumbler off the table, because an impression runs along the nerves from the brain and contracts the muscles in such and such a manner. But to explain how the impression originated and in what it consists is impossible at the present time. The so-called impression, of course, is force. There are several conditions of the will, the crypto-conscious will, each affecting the force in a different manner. This is true also of the conscious will. If you merely will in half-hearted manner knock the tumbler to the floor, your will affect your force but slightly, and you knock the tumbler off the table in a half-hearted manner, akin to the way in which you willed the action. If you had willed with determination to knock the tumbler to the floor, you would have hit it vigorously. Therefore, the force necessary to strike vigorously was aroused by the determined will. The will must, therefore, have operated upon the force more firmly, more solidly. And that is exactly the way in which the different conditions of will in the crypto-conscious mind affect the force. If then the crypto-conscious mind, over which the projector or astral spirit has so little control, wills weakly, the force will be weak. If it wills with determination or in the hyperpositive manner, the force it sets into work becomes what we might call solid, and this is the force which moves physical objects. It is possible, I suppose, for some individuals to develop conscious will enough to do this, but the crypto-conscious will is normally much more powerful than the conscious will. Of course, the conscious will gets into rapport or arouses the crypto-conscious will very often. The question naturally arises to how this force can become solid. We do not know with certainty. If we could conceive this force as being composed of atoms and electrons, the theory might be advanced that a change could take place in the atomic structure of the force, causing it to become more solid, thus capable of making contact with other solids. Another possibility, in the case when the astral body itself moves objects, is that the atomic structure of the body may be made more solid by a certain action of the crypto-conscious will. My own observations cause me to believe that a determined crypto-conscious will actually tends to make the astral body more solid, as will be shown by an experience which I shall soon relate. A moment first to consider Professor Flournoy's idea as to the possible nature of telekinetic action. Professor Flournoy writes, it may be conceived that as the atom and the molecule are the centre of a more or less radiating influence of extension, so the organized individual, isolated cell or colony of cells is originally in possession of a sphere of action where it concentrates at times. Its efforts more especially on one point, and again on another, ad libitum. Through repetition, habit, selection, hereditary, and other principles loved by biologists, certain more constant lines of force would be differentiated in this homogeneous primordial sphere, and little by little could give birth to motor organs. For example, our 4 members of flesh and blood sweeping the space around us would be but a more economic expedient invented by nature, a machine wrought in the course of better adapted evolution to obtain at least the expense the same useful effects as this vague primordial spherical power. Thus supplanted or transformed, these powers would therefore manifest themselves only very exceptionally in certain states or with abnormal individuals, as an atavistic reappearance of a mode of acting long ago fallen into disuse. Perhaps it is really very imperfect, and necessitates, without any advantage, an expenditure of vital energy far greater than the ordinary use of arms and limbs. Perhaps it is the cosmic power itself, the immoral and stupid demiurge, the unconsciousness of Mr. M. Hartman, which comes directly into play upon contact with a deranged nervous system and realizes its disordered dreams without passing through the regular channels of muscular movements. Professor Flournoy's theory is interesting. Many telekinetic phenomena are produced by the medium's own motivity, transmitted along an astral line of force. We discussed formally how this motivity could shift to and fro across a free cable, and also across the cable when the astral phantom was projected within cord activity range. As far as the astral projector is confirmed, there is very little chance of his moving material objects by conscious will, unless he is at the time controlled by the crypto-conscious mind in a determined mood. But when the crypto-conscious is determined, seldom can the conscious will affect it, and even during that part of the time when the crypto-conscious mind is not determined, it will not usually respond to conscious suggestion. I've tried so many times to move physical objects while conscious and projected that I gave up in disgust. This failure to move physical objects is one of the most aggravating things I know of. One becomes exasperated, almost tortured in mind, trying to make contact with things material. Surely this condition is a veritable hell for the unfortunate who can neither get back into his physical body nor throw off the yoke of his earthly habits and desires. Reader, you have no idea what an aggravating experience this is. I have been projected from my physical body and conscious, and I have tried and tried and tried to get in touch with material things, tried so exhaustively, in fact, that I became frantic, and when once more I would awaken in my physical body, I could feel all those beloved things I had always known. I felt like crying out, "What a grand and glorious feeling!" I am frank to confess that I have never moved a physical object by conscious will in all my projections, but recently I had an experience in which I apparently moved an object of considerable weight by means of the crypto-conscious will. This experience I shall narrate presently. And I'm going to leave it there. We are on page 271. I will continue and read some more another time, but just catch up with all the previous videos if you haven't caught up with the book, so to speak, as it is now. I'm not deflated. I'm not giving up on continuing to share the book with you. I just find that bite-sized pieces is a little bit more digestible for some, and I get a more positive response when the readings are not 30 minutes long. So much love to all, and I will catch up with you all again soon. Thank you for following along, and I do appreciate you. Much love from wet and windy Wiltshire today.